Okay, so get this. Today's deep dive is sparked by, a book review. It's
Hmm.
Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver, and also a note about using notebooks for book reviews. I thought that was interesting.
Uh-huh.
So today we're going to dive into Leather and Lark, this dark romance, and see if it's something, worth adding to that reading list. What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting pairing of sources, right? It's like
Yeah.
peeking into two different ways of like
Yeah.
engaging with books. We've got the analytical review
Right.
and then just like a personal reflection.
Yeah, totally. And maybe by the end of this, we'll be inspired to like break out our own notebooks. Who knows? But first, let's talk about Brynne Weaver.
Oh,
So the review calls her a standout voice in dark romance. And she's known for these morally gray characters and intense chemistry.
right.
Now, for those who might not be familiar with this genre, dark romance dives into these love stories that have like taboo elements. They push boundaries and explore the complexities of desire and power.
Exactly. Yeah. And morally gray characters
Hmm.
are those who you can't easily categorize as good or bad.
Hmm.
They kind of operate in those shades of gray, blurring the lines between like hero and villain.
Right.
And Weaver's really skilled at creating these morally ambiguous characters and then like throwing them into these unconventional love stories.
Okay, so tell me about the plot of Leather and Lark. What makes this story so unique?
Okay, so imagine this. You have Lark.
Okay.
She's a woman who's not only survived but thrived in this world that's full of danger. And she does it by being like really cunning, really smart. And then there's Leather.
Mm-hmm.
The review describes him as powerful and mysterious.
Okay.
And when these two forces collide, you get this like really captivating game of manipulation and attraction.
So it's not your typical boy meets girl falls in love kind of story.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The review really emphasizes that this is a high-stakes thriller,
Oh.
where the question of like who holds the power in their relationship, it shifts constantly.
It-
It asks, is there connection, passion, or possession? Like,
Oh.
where is the line between desire and danger?
Okay, now I'm starting to see why she's a standout voice.
Right.
This sounds like it goes like way beyond the surface level of a typical romance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The reviewer calls out a few major themes that are at play here,
Mm-hmm.
like power and submission,
Okay.
obsession versus love,
Right.
and the tension between survival and strategy. And I think one quote that really captures this is, the novel explores who truly holds control in a relationship where both characters are predators.
Whoa. Okay. So they're both playing some serious mind games with each other.
It seems that way.
That's intense. And there are no damsels in distress here.
No.
It sounds like Lark can definitely hold her own.
Yeah, definitely. She's described as strong and cunning,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really interesting because it kind of challenges those typical female characters that we see in a lot of romances.
Yeah.
Often they're portrayed as passive
Right.
or needing rescue.
Yeah. No, that's definitely refreshing to hear. This
Yeah.
complexity is what like sets dark romance apart, right?
I think so.
It's not afraid to like explore those, darker aspects of relationships and really
Yeah.
look at those characters' motivations.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
And Leather and Lark seems to really like fully embrace those shadowy elements.
Okay. I'm interested to hear more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got this power struggle, these morally gray characters. What else makes Leather and Lark so captivating?
Well, the review highlights the dark and addictive chemistry between Lark and Leather.
Ark?
Seems Weaver really knows how to like build that tension, to keep you on the edge of your seat.
Right. Okay. So it's got that slow burn intensity.
Mm-hmm.
But does the reviewer mention any downsides at all? Because, like, all this talk about mind games and power dynamics sounds pretty heavy.
Yeah, you're right. The review does warn that Leather and Lark is not for the faint of heart.
Okay.
The themes are intense, and some scenes might be disturbing for readers who prefer like lighter romance.
Yeah. Right. That makes sense. Not every love story needs to be sunshine and roses.
Right.
Sometimes exploring the shadows can reveal a lot about human nature.
Yeah, I agree.
Did the reviewer point out any specific strength that you found interesting?
One thing that stood out to me was the emphasis on Lark's agency.
Oh.
She's not just reacting to Leather's advances, she's an active participant in their game of seduction and manipulation.
I love that. It's so important to see female characters who are strong and in control,
Yeah,
especially in a genre that can sometimes fall into those stereotypical gender roles.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like Weaver's really subverting those tropes and giving us a heroine who's like both intelligent and capable.
Now, the review mentioned some other books with similar themes, Hunting Adeline, the Mindfreak series, even You, Like,
Hmm.
what's the connection there?
Well, they all kind of fall under this umbrella of dark romance and psychological thrillers,
Right.
but each one takes a slightly different approach, you know? For example, Hunting Adeline really delves into that stalker romance trope,
Okay.
while You explores like the unsettling reality of obsession in a modern setting.
So Leather and Lark is part of this larger trend of exploring the like darker side of love and relationships.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, these books aren't afraid to show us the messy, complicated,
Yeah.
even dangerous aspects of desire.
Right.
And they force us to confront like uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the
Mm.
boundaries we might cross in the name of love.
It makes you wonder why these kinds of stories are resonating so strongly with readers right now.
Yeah,
Is it a reflection of like our anxieties about modern relationships, or maybe it's just a fascination with the taboo and the forbidden?
that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a simple answer.
Right.
But what I find so fascinating is how these stories can make us think critically about like our own values and beliefs.
Yeah.
They challenge us to examine our own perceptions of love, trust, and the limits of acceptable behavior.
It's like holding up a mirror to society and
Yeah.
asking, what are we willing to accept in the name of love? And what lines are we not willing to cross?
Exactly, yeah. And those questions are just as relevant in real life as they are in fiction.
Now, the reviewer seemed pretty impressed with Leather and Lark. They even suggested it sets a new standard for psychological dark romance.
Uh-huh.
Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, it's certainly a bold claim,
Yeah.
but based on what we've discussed, it does seem like Weaver's pushing the boundaries of the genre.
Okay.
She's not just relying on those familiar tropes.
Right.
She's exploring complex themes, subverting expectations, and giving us characters who are both deeply flawed
Yeah.
and undeniably compelling.
I can see that. But new standard implies a lasting impact, something that like changes the genre going forward.
Yeah.
Do you think Leather and Lark has that kind of staying power?
It's too early to say for sure, of course.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're having this conversation, that the book is sparking these like intense reactions and discussions
Mhm.
suggests that it's striking a chord with readers.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good sign.
You're right. It's definitely generating buzz. Now, back to that note about using a notebook for book reviews.
Okay.
It almost feels like a challenge,
Uh-huh.
Like we need to be taking notes and really analyzing these books on a deeper level.
I like that interpretation.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a reminder that even in a casual conversation like this,
Yeah.
there's always more to uncover, more to ponder.
And maybe, just maybe, those notes could turn into something more, like a blog post, an essay, even a full-fledged review.
That's the beauty of engaging with literature, isn't it? It can spark all sorts of creative endeavors.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the dark themes, the complex characters, the psychological intensity, but what about the romance?
Yeah.
Does the review address whether Leather and Lark delivers on that front? I mean, it is called Leather and Lark, not Leather versus Lark. So
Right.
there has to be some kind of connection there.
You're absolutely right. The review describes their relationship as like a dance between dominance and submission,
Okay.
where the lines between love and obsession get really blurry.
Yeah.
It seems like Weaver is exploring this kind of romance that thrives in the shadows.
Yeah.
It's fueled by danger and uncertainty.
That definitely sounds intense.
Yeah.
But also kind of intriguing. Like they're drawn to each other despite the risks, or maybe even because of them.
Exactly. And the reviewer poses this really thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
How does Leather and Lark redefine the idea of trust in dark romance?
Interesting.
So it seems like the book is challenging this conventional idea of trust as like the foundation for love
Mm-hmm.
and exploring how it can be twisted, how it can be manipulated
Right.
in a relationship that's built on these power dynamics.
Okay, now that's a question I need to ponder.
Hmm.
Because in a world where both characters are essentially predators, can true trust even exist? Or is their connection like doomed from the start?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it seems like Weaver wants us to wrestle with that ambiguity,
Mm-hmm.
to confront this uncomfortable reality that love can coexist with darkness,
Right.
and that trust can be a weapon as much as it is a shield.
Wow, that's deep. It's like Leather and Lark is forcing us to reevaluate our own assumptions about love and trust and the boundaries we set in relationships.
Precisely. And that's what makes this genre so compelling.
Yeah.
It pushes us to examine those darker aspects of human nature and confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the choices we make.
So for you, dear listener, what's the takeaway here? Is this book worth adding to your reading list?
Well, if you're looking for a lighthearted, feel-good romance,
Yeah,
this probably isn't it.
right.
But if you're intrigued by complex characters, intense psychological themes, and a love story that defies expectations,
Mm-hmm.
then Leather and Lark might be right up your alley.
And maybe after you finish reading, you'll even be inspired to grab your own notebook
Mm.
and jot down your thoughts. Who knows? You might end up with your own deep dive into the world of Brynne Weaver.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Engaging with literature on a personal level,
for
whether it's
sure.
through note-taking, discussion, or even just quiet reflection,
Right.
can really enrich the experience and lead to some fascinating insights.
You know what? I think I might do that myself. Maybe even start a book club dedicated to like unpacking these complex,
Wow.
morally gray romances.
Yeah, that's an idea I can get behind.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll even see Lever and Lark adapted for the screen.
Oh, absolutely.
I can already picture the casting debates and fan theories like swirling online.
I can just imagine the dark, moody cinematography,
Yeah.
the smoldering looks, the underlying tension in every
It
scene.
would certainly be a visually and emotionally gripping experience.
For sure.
But for now, we'll leave you with the book itself, waiting to be explored and dissected.
And remember, dear listener, as you journey into the depths of Leather and Lark, keep that notebook handy, because you never know what thoughts, questions, or even creative sparks this dark and twisted love story might ignite. Until next time, happy reading.